Today I'm making this circle cutting jig because I need to make a really big circle for this table. The jig has an incremental swing arm, a non-destructive way to attach it to your material, and is fully adjustable to dial in the exact radius you want. So to get started, I ripped a strip of plywood to act as the swing arm. You can make this strip as long as you want for as big of a circle as you want. For this jig I'm going for about 2 feet long. I do have a sketch on my website if you want all the measurements. I then marked down the center and laid out 1-inch increments. I headed to the drill press and drilled 1/4-inch holes down the length. Then I used some 1/4-inch plywood to cut a perfect square and mark the center. I used a Forstner bit to countersink for the T-nut and switched out the drill bit to drill the through hole. I positioned the T-nut over a dog hole and drove it home. I'm sure I could get a T-nut that wouldn't stick through, but this is what I had on hand and I didn't want to drive across town for a 50-cent piece, so I just filed the points flush. To make room for the shaft of the T-nut, I just ran a dado down the center of the swing arm. I should mention that the plywood you use for the pivot point should be about the same thickness as the base plate of your router. It'll make assembly much easier later on. I ripped a piece of scrap plywood to start making the bracket to attach the jig to the router. I measured the distance between the holes on my router and then drilled some through holes. I did a test fit and marked the length so I wouldn't have a bunch of extra material sticking out, and cut the excess off at the chop saw. Then I countersunk for the heads of the bolts. This would have been a lot easier before I drilled the through holes, but I'm just making it up as I go along. I got another scrap of plywood and marked the width that I needed by holding it up to what I had already made. I did this without the base plate attached, and then ripped it off at the table saw. I marked the length and cut the waist off at the chop saw. I pre-drilled some holes to attach it to the swing arm and flipped it over to pre-drill some holes to attach it to the mounting block I had made earlier. I then glued and screwed it to the swing arm. I then glued and screwed it to the mounting block in the router. The bolts stick out about 1.5 inches, so you have a little over 1 inch of adjustability. This will compensate for the distance between the pivot points in the swing arm. To locate the jig on my workpiece, I lined the points up with my layout lines, marked the perimeter so I know where to put some double stick tape, and stick her down. I pick a pivot hole close to the size I want, and while I'm there, I mark out the radius in inches along the swing arm. Then using the bolts, I fine-tune the radius to my layout line and cut the circle out. Stay tuned, my next video will be of the round table. If you want to see what I have coming up for future videos, give me a follow on Instagram, and of course, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when the next video comes out.